My name is Eliana Alvarez. I'm 18 and I'm a self-injurer. Yeah. When I was in 8th grade, my whole world turned upside down. My father was accused by other people in my family of something that I could never see coming. I kept on telling myself, no, Daddy didn't do this. Daddy couldn't have done this. But this whole thing took an effect on not just me. It took effect on my mom and my other sisters. I have 2 younger sisters that I felt I had to be strong for. About a month after my dad was accused, my grandfather died of thyroid cancer. It was a cancer that killed him quickly, and it took a toll on the whole entire family. But it really affected me because I was extremely close with my grandfather. Again, I felt that I had to be really strong for my younger 2 sisters, and I sucked it up, and I kept on a smile. I was able to keep a smile on my face and stay strong for about 2 years, when eventually my emotions caught up with me, and then I started getting really depressed, and I started partaking in self-injury.
I feel like I can't breathe, just hold me.
I was really depressed, and I was also in a state where I kept all my emotions bottled up inside of me. I started self-injury and cutting myself because I felt that I needed some physical pain to override my emotional and mental pain. At first, I was very experimental, and I was very shallow when I cut, but then my parents found out about it, and it was kind of harsh. They wanted me to go into therapy, and they didn't understand why I was cutting, and they didn't understand cutting in general, so they almost came off as if they were mad. I told my mom that I would stop cutting if I didn't have to go to therapy. I was very against therapy, almost as if I didn't want to admit I had a problem. She agreed to do that if I just stopped. What my parents didn't know is that I didn't stop. I just continued. And as I went on, I cut deeper and it got more serious. I was cutting more often and I wasn't being as careful. And it wasn't just things that happened with my father or my grandfather that made me cut. It would be after a fight with my mother or sisters, or a bad grade, or a bad day at school that really took effect on me. And I'd just go home and I'd cut. It was my mental release. I'd never had taken to writing in a journal or drawing. It was an outlet for me. Cutting was an outlet, but it was not a healthy one, but I could not realize that at the time. I wanted to be a teacher. And eventually I realized that if I wanted to be a teacher, I could not have deep scars on my wrist, and I needed to be emotionally stable for the children. So I reached out for help. I went to my school psychologist and told her about my cutting. And she was very concerned and immediately told me she had to call my mother. As scared as I was happy I wouldn't be lying to my mother anymore, and she made the call. Again, my mother was upset, but this time she told me there was no choice. I was going into therapy.
Now I'm a warrior. Now I've got thicker skin.
I was still very against going to therapy because I did not want to admit I had a problem. But what I didn't know was therapy would be the road to my recovery. It took a lot of talking with my therapist, who luckily I right away created a strong bond with, and it also took a lot of looking inside of me and realizing what I wanted. And when I realized what I wanted, I knew there was no way I was going to get there if I continued to hurt myself. Finally, I was able to get clean. I lasted about 6 months of being clean when I broke. I relapsed, and it was hard. It took a huge amount of strength to go 6 months without cutting myself, and to have one moment that broke me was even worse. It just was an immense amount of emotions that came over me. I cried and I was alone, and at the time I had already pushed away my friends. I had burdened them with always just talking sad and telling them about my problems, and they didn't have the answers I needed. I went back into a downward spiral. I started cutting again, and I was being depressed again, and this time my parents, especially my mom, was more receptive, and she had a better handle on what cutting was, and she was more understanding, so it was easier to go to talk to her. But I was still really emotionally upset, and it got to the point that I couldn't stand the lying that was going around in my house and in my family, and the amount of hate that was within my family, and I didn't like where I was. And it got to the point that I just sat down one night late at night and started taking Vicodin. I was laying there. I was pretty sure I was gonna just fall asleep and be gone. I had carved the words lies into my arm because at the time that was what was most affecting me. No one was being honest with each other. It hit me while I was laying there. I didn't want to die. I wanted to stay here, and I wanted to fight this. I wasn't going to let this illness get the best of me. So I went to my grandmother, and I told her, this is what I did, but I don't want to let it take its course. Immediately, she woke up my mother. She set me down, was tending to my cut, and my mom was calling poison control. Lucky for me, they said I didn't take enough that was going to really hurt me, and just to keep a close eye on me tonight. Although my suicide attempt was my lowest moment, it was also my moment of realization. I realized I was done. For a year and 8 months now, I have not cut myself or injured myself in any other way. And it has been the most eye-opening experience. I'm in recovery, but I'm not healed. I'm a lot better than I used to be, but there are still times that, just like a drug or alcohol addiction, I go through withdrawals. I am sitting there, just rubbing my thighs up and down, just giving my hands something to do besides reach for that razor and cut myself. What a lot of people don't realize is that self-injury is an addiction, and that's why it's harder for other people to understand. And that has been another challenge for me. Other people understanding what it is I'm going through, and that makes it a lot harder to find someone to talk to. Although I was able to rekindle my relationships with the people that I had unfortunately pushed away, I still have trouble talking to some of them about what goes on with me. Although every day is a huge struggle for me, once I get through it, I know I'm one step closer to being where I want to be. I've realized that the razors no longer can rule my life, and that other people shouldn't have the ability to push me down. I also started my own nonprofit organization called Becoming Stronger. That was a huge part of my own recovery. It focuses on peer support groups and online peer support. It has been eye-opening to show me that I could have been a lot worse, and other people have it worse than I do. And it is so rewarding to be able to help someone and know where they're coming from. And it's also great to have someone who knows and understands what you're going through to talk to. I'm making this video to show people that recovery is and always will be possible. You just have to want it and be ready to fight for it. There's going to be relapsing, and there's going to be tears, and there's going to be fighting. But once you get there, you'll know it was worth it.
I'm stronger than I've ever been.
Thank you for watching, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to my story. If you need any help, please contact me at becoming.stronger@live.com or visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/becomingstronger, or follow us on Twitter at becomingstrongr. We're always here to help. Thank you, and have a fabulous day. Stay strong.
It's made of steel, you can't get in, I'm a wire, and you can never hurt me again. Out of the ashes, I'm burning like a fire.